Fingers crossed. Got it. I don't know. I think he got it from someone who gave it something. I know it's cute, right? There's our picture. Beautiful. Now, we learned how to mute camera, audio,
That was free for them to come. You know, we brought the card. Oh, yeah, I've seen that in March next year. And then you'll come up to so very helpful. Make sure we're coordinated.
No, I just did the invocation. Didn't I just do the invocation?
Yeah.
You're doing invocation? Oh, that's what I was trying to see.
I'm positive.
No, you didn't.
And I happen to like you.
Why is yours? Nope.
It's additional copies.
Oh, for what? Whoever? I mean, they got it, but it's
Down for it. He bought some additional
should be on
ones.
the agenda.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing? It's in the agenda? Okay. All right.
What is that?
Sir? Yeah. That's, you got that in the agenda. You got it forwarded to you. I don't know if you... Yes, sir. Same thing. Yeah, we put those in the packages. Yeah.
We'll discuss.
They're a company that does financial services. We've never had this kind of thing. What funding? I'll cut my microphone. They do all of that stuff up front. Up to 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. The invocation tonight will be done by Commissioner Way, Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Way.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening, ask for your many blessings. Lord, we appreciate the rain that you so graciously gave us last week for the crops and for the area just in general. Lord, we ask that you stay with us and be with us in this ever-changing world. Be with us and guide us and make us come back to each other as neighbors and loving one another. Make sure that we are not judged by race, gender, or political preference, but as just human beings trying to make this world a better place for each other. Be with us as we discuss matters facing the city this evening and guide us in the proper decisions that come with it. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Beautiful press.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Here.
Commissioner Albright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kaczynski.
Present.
Commissioner Gleason.
Here.
Commissioner Way.
Mayor Wheeler.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, before we go to approval of agenda, I'm going to do something that Mayor Moss used to do, and that's mayoral privilege. I want to address the events of the last couple of days in our political climate. Now, we are a municipality, so we're not involved in federal politics, we're not involved in local politics. But the atmosphere in the political arena at this point is just boggles my mind that it's in the state that it is. This Board of Commissioners is made up of unaffiliated Democrats and Republicans. But at no time do we ever address any issue as an unaffiliated Democrat or Republican. This board is nonpartisan, and we strive to address every issue based on its merits, regardless of party or political influence. The idea that we have two political parties going at each other the way we do, when regardless of if your candidate wins or not, you represent all the people in that area.
Amen.
You're elected governor, you represent everybody in the state. Elected president, everybody in the country. Even the ones that didn't vote for you, you still represent them. And to have a political system in now that won't support good ideas because it's not what their party wanted to do just scares the hell out of me. This board, and I'm so proud of them that out of the 6-7 years I've been doing this, have never ran into an issue where it was Republican or Democrat. It's a nonpartisan board that represents all the citizens of the city of Creedmoor, regardless. Race, creed, color, political affiliation makes no difference. They treat every citizen based on the issues and the remedies that we have before us. So, just the idea that we still have political leaders that have to worry about being shot at any one time scares the hell out of me. And I just kind of wanted to stress that out there, that this board does not pertain to things like that, and ask each and every one of you to pray for the leaders that we have in Creedmoor, as well as the state and federal government. So that is my mayoral moment, and we will move on.
Well done.
All right, approval of agenda. Is there any changes or additions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, if you may.
Yes, sir.
Move 10E to 10D and 10D to 10E, if that's possible.
Wait a minute.
It's
You
gonna
want to flip them, in other words?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So he wants to make 10D 10E, and 10E would be 10D.
Right.
You may have to remind me of that when I get to it.
No problem.
All right, any other changes or adjustments?
I make a motion that we accept the agenda with the modification from Commissioner Wilkins.
Motion is made by Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we move now to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve made by Commissioner Wilkins. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. All right. At this time, we move to item 6, introductions, recognition, presentations. We're looking at a presentation from JMT Engineering and Planning Firm. Mr. Frangos.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Mike Frangos, the Community Development Director for the City of Creedmoor. Tonight is a reward. It's a reward from the mayor winning a drawing about 6 months ago now, maybe 7 months ago now, at City Vision Conference that happened in Winston-Salem. So JMT was kind enough to provide 5 hours of free service in response to that award to the City of Creedmoor. And they have prepared for us a presentation tonight specifically regarding traffic impact analysis, but also as a way to introduce their firm and the services that they provide. And I'll just remind you all that they did work on our comprehensive plan, City Plan 2040. back about a year and a half ago or so. Now, they were the transportation engineering consultant on that. So at this time, I'll introduce Marquis. David Hyde.
You read the whole book?
Just one of them. Yes, I really appreciate the time, and I love to talk about traffic engineering. It's my passion. My wife says she's a traffic engineering widow. Got David Hyder here, he's introduced. He's going to be available for questions and whatnot. So I was down here this weekend helping my brother build a deck. Hottest week of the year. Last summer, I was down here helping him do something else. Hottest week of the year. I told him not coming next July. He lives in the Fuquay Arena area. So, started a little bit here.
Is it on?
There you go.
That was me.
Oh, that was
Oh, that was you? Like,
Is it on?
just like little.
There. There. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
It's not going now?
There we go. All right, kind of some basics before we get started with what we do and kind of what is involved with a traffic study. Now you see it on here, the traffic impact in that study is a part of a traffic study. A lot of people kind of mix and match those, and that's fine. But a lot of what we do is complete streets, Powell bill mapping, driveway and access control. That's a big part of traffic studies, especially if maybe a town wants to narrow a street. They've got to prove that it works, that sort of thing. Traffic signal warrants and design. Commercial vehicles, that's a big part of traffic studies. Subdivision roadways, neighborhoods, a lot of traffic calming type studies we get involved with. NCDOT, we work very closely with NCDOT and other state DOTs a lot, on a lot of different things. Usually they're a stakeholder and they have a place at the table to kind of help figure out what needs to take place, what needs to be studied. The bottom two, NUTCD and AASHTO are two manuals that we use with a lot of our traffic studies. The NUTCD kind of gives guidance to traffic engineers and attorneys all over the nation on signs, pavement markings, traffic signals, anything like that. I've had a lot of attorney clients tell me that more attorneys have a copy of the NUTCD than traffic engineers. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a great guidebook, and I didn't bring it because I couldn't carry all of that. So. There's a copy of some of them. That's the NUTCD there in the middle. It was just revised this year. The AASHTO is the design manual. It's the green book. At least that's what a lot of people call it. The Complete Streets Manual was put out by NCDOT a number of years ago. And basically, it guides DOT in their approval of projects that every project has to be considered for being a complete street. And that means all modes of transportation. Doesn't mean they have to be included, but it has to be considered and evaluated for that. And we do that in our traffic studies. And then the top one there is the driveway manual. It's not been updated for years and years and years. But it's really important because it governs where people can have driveways, commercial driveways, spacing, size, positioning, design, all that. And it's required by NCDOT that our traffic studies adhere to the driveway manual. So, one of the first things we do when we're asked to do a traffic study is we look at a AADT map. Now, AADT stands for Average Annual Daily Traffic. That's different than ADT. ADT stands for annual daily traffic. So ADT means it's a snapshot. So maybe for a week, traffic is counted, and then it's expanded to what an average for the whole year would be. ADT means it's actually counted for the whole year, which is pretty rare to actually have that out there. And this is CREEDMOOR, and you can see some of the numbers there. Like on Highway 56, it's 10,500 there close to town, and it gets smaller as you get out of town. And this is online too, if you ever need to look at it. DOT has a really good website. So, why do you do it? That's the question we get asked a lot. And three really important reasons is to preserve public health. Traffic can cause congestion, it can cause unsafe conditions, it can cause crashes, it can cause havoc to bicycles, pedestrians, it can cause emissions. A lot of health problems. Anxiety, absolutely, yes. I was in Boston a couple weeks ago, and I got anxious about blowing the horn at me. To protect public investments. You'll see a little bit later on, traffic studies usually involve roadway improvements, and that's a public investment. If you didn't have any sort of regulation for people who brought traffic, then somebody would have to pony up one day to fix the problems. And that's either going to be the local government or state government. And to ensure public safety, we just talked about that a little bit. So, what is a traffic analysis? Traffic impact analysis. Kind of 5 steps that we go through. Existing traffic, background traffic, build-out traffic, mitigation, and approval. So, some of the key performance indicators that we look at with traffic studies, it varies kind of where you go, but typically NCDOT likes to see anything that's greater than like a 25% increase in delay. You need to look at for some sort of mitigation. Long backups, long queues. If the level of service drops. Everyone heard of level of service? It's like school, like a grade, A, B, C, D, E, F.
Right.
The difference is, you don't want to be an A. You don't want to be an F. You want to be right in the middle. If a road is level service A, it's overbuilt and it's been a waste of taxpayers' dollars, probably. If it's F, it's underbuilt and it's just clogged. So you want to be in that sweet spot. Usually about a C or D is considered acceptable during a peak hour. So when do you want a TIA? Traffic for a project will cause problems in nearby streets. And most towns that we work with have different thresholds for that. There's a little town near where we are from that considers 14 homes a major subdivision. And so we have 2 traffic studies for 14 homes. Other cities are maybe 100, maybe 200. But it just kind of varies depending on what the ordinance is written. For state-maintained roads, based on screening. Before we start a traffic study, we send a screening document in to DOT. They help us figure out and come to an agreement on what needs to be studied, which is really helpful because everyone kind of comes to the table early on. Usually around 3,000 vehicles per day is DOT's threshold, or if the local ordinance requires it. And sometimes off-system roads, sometimes private roads, city streets get involved as part of a TIA study. We've done TIAs before that really involved no state roads, period, just city streets. Trips in the peak period, that's a pretty common number for a lot of cities. If you have 100 trips during the peak hour, you probably need to look at the traffic, look at the traffic and do some sort of traffic study. Charter schools, really any kind of school, traffic study. Especially DOT does not like schools spilling out onto roadways. And you see that everywhere. I'm sure y'all run across it. You're driving down the road and all of a sudden there's a line of traffic waiting to get in school. So, anytime there's a school that's built, there's a traffic study done in North Carolina. So typically what you can ask for in a TIA, I mean, the real answer is anything, but reasonably, you can ask for turn lanes at access points, signs, safety improvements, maybe a traffic signal. It's a little more unreasonable to go way off-site to ask for improvements. Some exceptions might be when it's a really big development, a big shopping center, like a Walmart shopping center or something. Typically, you do go pretty far off-site to study that. I know the city of Charlotte has an ordinance that says you go to the nearest traffic signal from that site. Doesn't matter how far it is. It might be 3 miles. If you go to that next traffic signal, that's the end of your study limits. So, kind of extreme.
Is that right?
Good to know, dear.
So, once you decide that a town wants to decide that they want to do a traffic study, first of all, developers expect that. They just do. Now, developers will complain. Maybe some developers in the room, I don't know. But they'll argue, they'll complain, oh, why do we have to do that? But they expect to do it. It's part of their due diligence for a project. Like we said a few minutes ago, it helps with the public safety, the public health. Someone's going to have to make some improvements at some point. So it usually makes sense to roll that into whoever is creating that traffic, and that's what a traffic study does. Write an ordinance would be the next thing that you would do, and that ordinance would spell out exactly when a traffic study was required and what measurements to use. Every town's a little bit different. We've written them for all sorts of different towns, helping them write their ordinance of how that might look. And then you ultimately adopt the ordinance. One thing I really want to be clear on is the traffic study, it's a sealed engineering document, but it's a tool. And I know some DOT engineers, I used to work for DOT for almost 20 years, that they get a traffic study, and if they already have in their mind what they want to require, it goes into the round can. They just toss it, and they don't even use it. I know some clients that use it to an absolute T. Every word that's in there, they adopt. But what I'm getting at is, it's a tool. It gives a town guidance. The town doesn't have to require everything in the traffic study. And we try to write it as maybe what's needed, but not necessarily who's responsible for it. If the town wants the developer to do some sort of improvement that's in the traffic study, that's perfectly justified because the traffic study said it. But there might be right-of-way problems. Maybe a turn lane's needed, but there's no right-of-way. So sometimes you just have to say, okay, well, we're just not going to follow that. So don't feel like if you have that in your ordinance that you require a traffic study that you have to follow every piece of it. treat it like a tool. Some of the manuals that we use, I did bring another one. This is called the Trip Generation Manual. And this is one of 3 editions, three volumes. And what this is it helps us figure out how many trips a development will generate. So if there's an apartment complex, you can go in here, determine how many trips a apartment complex, or a grocery store, or any sort of land use. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I also brought a copy of a traffic study. This is just kind of a moderate one, in Henderson County for a Sphinx gas station. But you can see about how thick it is. So, probably, do what? But the reality is, only about this much is the actual study and report. The rest of it is all the appendix, the models, the traffic counts, everything else that's included in this. So if you're really going to read it to determine what's needed, you don't have to read the whole thing. So, that kind of sums it up. Y'all have any questions?
Mr. Way, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Gleason?
No, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So, in your opinion, if a subdivision came to the city to be built, and they did their traffic study, however, they did not build at that time, and more than 5 years had gone by since the initial plan was approved, would you recommend, because of changing of times, that a TIA be done again? Could a city require one to be done again?
Yes and yes. Typically 2 years is the threshold, that once traffic is counted, if you go about 2 years, you probably need to look at it again.
But we'd have to have the ordinance in place.
Right.
We couldn't just
Like that.
do it.
2 years to build. That's done a lot, actually. Something happens, project just stalls or whatever, and we're asked a lot to go back and refresh the traffic study. The good thing is, a lot of times it's not the entire thing because you've already got the bones of it.
And the other question I had was, let's see, city has to do it, yep, got it. Average annual daily traffic. That's something that the DOT does when they do their study, right?
Right.
What is their average number? Because I don't know if you're familiar with Highway 56. I've got board members over here who have sent me pictures of the traffic over a mile long in the morning. And it's not just school mornings, right?
No,
It's in the summertime also. It's not as bad.
not as bad, but it's,
But we have asked for the DOT to give us a turn lane or a turn signal at one of our intersections. And they've told us they have a turn lane there, but there's not an advanced turn arrow. And they've told us it's not required, but it would get people out of the main part of congestion, and they'd be able to get off that road before they got to the school traffic and come around in a different way. So, is there another way to fight this, or to push it, or get something done?
Have a study done, have the town do the study. DOT is right, it's not required, but it's very helpful. It sounds like it needs to be there.
So if the town did their own study and presented it to the DOT?
That will be helpful. It still does not 100% guarantee, but you kind of really can't argue that.
Okay.
If the town does their own study. And we run into that a lot. Towns say, well, DOT keeps saying no, can you help us get to a yes?
Yeah.
And, being there for DOT for 20 years, sometimes you kind of got to know what to do. DOT.
Okay, thank you.
that's good.
Mr. Albright, any questions?
No.
Mr. Wilkins?
No, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Took care of that. We moved All right, we move to item number 7, request to address the board. Mr. Moss.
Good evening, everyone.
State your name and your address, please.
I will. Mr. Mayor, if I could give a copy of my remarks to your clerk and...
Please do.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners, my name is Darrell Moss. I live at 207 Cozart Street here in Creedmoor, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city. I am here tonight to respectfully ask that you, our leaders, to, by any means necessary, stand with and for your citizens to do something about our poor water quality here in Creedmoor. Now, I would anticipate that about now you are preparing to direct me to go talk to Sigwasa. So before I continue, please know that I am fully and completely understanding that Creedmoor is not responsible for making water nor processing our effluent. However, I do hold the city responsible for, through direct action or in coordination with local, state, and federal partners, to promote the general safety and well-being in our community for citizens to live, work, and play. And I wish to thank the gentleman from JMT. He may have left. He kind of set the table for me, so to speak, talking about in one of his slides to preserve public health. And I hope that clean water is one of those things that might be important to preserving public health. Now, the mindset that our government bears responsibility to doing what it can to protect our general health and well-being is reflected in our original 1905 city charter. And I'd like to thank the city clerk for providing you with a copy of that document. Now, many citizens, myself included, do not enjoy a safe environment. Our water stinks, and while it is billed as safe to drink, common sense tells me that it is not. Hopefully we can agree that clean air, clean water, and clean dirt are essentials to this life on earth. Have I complained to Sigwasa? I have. A few years back I did, and I'll be honest with you, I stopped because I learned it was fruitless. To that end, I am again asking that you, our city leaders, stand with and for our citizens to call on Sigwasa to improve the quality of our water. Whether individually or collectively, we need your help now. Now, while Sigwasa's financial challenges are well documented, the bigger challenge, as I and many others see it, may be to overcome the board's weak leadership that breeds distrust in the organization. Evidence of this is the rate and fee increase enacted by Sigwasa that was effective on July 1st. Putting it as simply as I can, we get to pay more for bad water. At this juncture, achieving an organizational structure that is seeking the good of the whole may help you enhance your own community stature. One action that I believe you can take immediately is for this board to call on Sigwasa to restructure its bylaws to create stronger and more responsive board representation. Now, I will tell you, I do not make this ask lightly. I make it not only as a lifelong resident of Creedmoor and a Sigwasa utility customer, but also as one of 13 people in the room in May of 2001 for the meeting that created the regional water and sewer system concept for our community. And finally, as someone whose signature is on the May 16th, 2014 asset purchase agreement between the city of Creedmoor and Sigwasa. From its earliest discussions about a regional initiative to control what was formerly known as the Butner Utility System, the primary focus was to provide water and sewer for economic development. This is outlined in the May 27th, 1999 Randall County Economic Development Commission memo that I also provided. Interestingly, at that moment, Creedmoor was the only partner in the Butner Utility System, which was comprised of the state of North Carolina, Granville County, and the city of Creedmoor that had unused sewer capacity. Subsequently, county officials petitioned then Secretary of Health and Human Services Jim Edgerton for Creedmoor's sewer allocation. To his credit, Secretary Edgerton declined their request, and Creedmoor officials were very fortunate to learn about that meeting and its outcome. Now, having walked in your shoes, I agree that economic development is important, but I hope that you can agree with me and other citizens that the health and well-being of our citizens and our people must be Seguasa's top priority. However, as I stated at the top of my comments, my water stinks, and I'm imploring you to take action to keep us safe. So knowing what I know about Seguasa and its history, why do I come address you? Knowing that you're going to tell me go talk to Seguasa. Now, quite simply, I believe that your real opportunity as the leaders of my city is to provide aggressive, forward-thinking leadership that will be needed to build trust in Seguasa. This growing distrust will do more to damage our community than poor decisions or heated debate. Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners, I am asking that you please do not pass the buck on what I believe is the number one issue in our community, that being clean water. Thank you, and if there are any questions that I can answer, I'll be more than happy to.
Ms. Moss, you were part of this original thing with Seguasa, and this is not put you on the spot, just curious. What is the major difference that you may have noticed, and possibly most of the citizens here, between the way the water was when Creedmoor owned the plant and we operated it versus now with Seguasa doing it? I mean, what, in your uneducated opinion, what do you think changed between the drinking water and all we had when we operated the plant versus what we have now with Seguasa operating the plant?
Old infrastructure. I'll be honest with you, Bobby, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's all right. That is it. Mayor Wheeler, Creedmoor had old infrastructure. I think our water plant was built in 1939. That's no longer there, by the way. Butler's infrastructure was built, back during the war days to support that effort, and that was built in the 1940s. But my experience, and again, I've been here for a long time. I've been here, well, you've been here much longer than I have, by the way.
Well, not much.
But I've been here my entire life, and we have water events in Creedmoor probably 2 times a year. And we all know when the lake would turn over down at Lake Rogers, our water would get brown. We'd have to put that little chemical thing in our wash that turned the clothes brown, and that would take care of it. But we had pretty good water, by and large. But when we hooked on to Seguasa, and that was one of the key tenets in the document that created Seguasa, it was about providing clean water to the entire system. And I'm not sure exactly, I'm not an engineer or a scientist or anything like that. My water used to never stink. Never. But now, I'll tell you, on a Saturday morning when my wife is doing laundry, it is almost unbearable. And I wish I could tell you exactly what's going on with it. They've come over and flushed the lines, when we've asked them to. But it is increasingly getting worse. But Creedmoor's water, when we were making it in Creedmoor, it was different. And I always heard from folks like Herman Wilkerson, who worked at the water plant and sat up there where you sit now, that it was a different process. I don't know if that's got something to do with it, I don't. But I can tell you that just from an observational standpoint, at 207 Cozart Street, our water stinks. And it is very bad.
Well, it pretty much does, I think, everywhere in Creedmoor, but it goes back to the outdated infrastructure that Seguasa has gotten from Creedmoor is what Creedmoor sold Seguasa, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The pipes in the ground in Creedmoor belong to Seguasa, but those are the same pipes that Creedmoor sold them at the time of the transfer.
I would have to respectfully disagree, sir.
Well, what I'm talking about, they haven't been pulled out of the ground and updated.
Prior to that, though, do you recall the $9.6 million infrastructure
Right,
project?
right, and I did that. I'm just saying, I guess my question here is that we know SIGWAS is working on improvements and updates and that type of thing. But short of coming in here and pulling the outdated pipes up, and there are some here regardless of how much we spent, we know they are, because some of them had, when we repaired the old pipes, we blew out other pipes because they were so fragile at the time, is that we've applied for, SIGWAS has applied for money, and I'm really not in position to have this argument, but they've applied for money to improve all of this. But by the time they get the money, we're already the same amount behind on the total value. As somebody, and I'm going to put you on the spot, and if you don't want to answer, that's fine, but seems like to me, replacing the pipes and the infrastructure that lead to all of this, wouldn't you think that that's a main talking point as far as the smell of the water is coming from, is like you say, the outdated infrastructure, which would include the piping from the treatment plant in Butner to CREEDMOOR?
I don't disagree with you about the old pipes. I don't disagree with that. But I come from an IT background, and it's garbage in, garbage out. And if we have bad water coming out of the water plant, I don't care if you put in a brand new pipe every day, you're going to have bad water quality. And I do believe that is the impetus of our issue, Mayor, is that we have a plant that has been held together with duct tape and baling wire. And we, the citizens, get to suffer for that right now in bad water. And like I said in my comments, sir, I cannot emphasize enough. And I understand, Russ May's back here, there he is. Russ May's back there, County Commissioner. I know economic development is important to everybody. I understand it, I get it, and agree with it. But I also believe that the health and safety and well-being of our citizens should be, must be, priority number one. But that's not what we hear. And I didn't bring it tonight, but I can send it to you. I can send you article after article about economic development projects slated for Granville County after this big project is done. And my point is, I'm asking my board to stand up to SIGWAS and say, our citizens, you can say Darrell, I don't care, but our citizens, and I know it's not just me, but our citizens are plagued by bad water. We need that to be priority number one. That's what I'm asking.
Well, like I said before it started, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. It's just that we hear a lot about things that are going on, and I've known you for years, and I know you do your research. It's just, I hear a lot about what the problem is, and I know SIGWAS is doing the best they can with what they've got to work with, but I just not hearing a whole lot of solutions. And like I said, you've researched it, maybe you could come up with one. I don't know, you're not an engineer like you say, but I was just taking a shot in the dark. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but that's where, had you thought of anything and research that you thought they could do?
It's going to cost a ton of money.
Oh, yeah.
There was just an NPR study just in the last week, $20 billion for infrastructure for North Carolina. And, hopefully we'll get some of that money if it ever comes to fruition. But that still, in my opinion, does not relieve us of the fact that we have, let me say that differently. I do not believe that relieves us of the fact that we are delivering dirty water to our citizens. That's a problem.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you there. It's just eventually somebody's got to figure out a solution, and right now I don't know of one, and that's my point.
But my solution, Mayor, to you is this. I just believe that, and again, I came to CREEDMOOR for multiple reasons. Number one, you're my board. This is where I live. Me going to Sigwassa, big deal. But I came to you because I feel like, as a citizen, I have the ability to, number one, let you know what I think is right or not right, in this case, something that we're struggling with. But I believe that y'all have just a tremendous opportunity. The CREEDMOOR board has a tremendous opportunity to provide an example to Butner, to STEM, to Granville County, to say we are willing to stand up for our citizens. That's what's missing out of this whole conversation. I can't talk technical for 6 minutes before I'm out of gas. But what I can talk about a lot is what it takes for a board to gain the trust and confidence of its citizens. To me, that's what's missing in this whole dialogue, is for our leaders to be willing to show the courage to say, our folks are struggling. We need y'all to get on with it, to do whatever needs to be done to fix this problem. They cannot sustain, life is not sustainable with dirty water. It's just not. I spent $16 at Food Line today to buy my bottle of water. That's on top of my Sigwassa bill. So those are just real world applications that we're dealing with. And again, you can multiply that across many families in CREEDMOOR. And I'm just simply asking for this board to speak to Sigwassa, to let them know that and I know, Robert, Georgia, I know that you're doing these things. I know that you are. But what I am suggesting is that this board take collective action to call on Sigwassa to get to it.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Wilkins, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Albright?
No, I don't really have any questions, just a response. You say you have stinky water. Well, I live in Sotheby subdivision, and my water doesn't stink. Now, my outside water does stink because I have an old hose, and that is just the way that is. But as far as in my home, I do not smell anything. There is sometimes some extra chlorine smell that I do smell every now and then, like when they're flushing the lines, you can smell those things. But as far as like it making my clothes a different color, or I do have problems every now and then at night when I believe everybody's taking a shower in my subdivision all at the same time, because I'll try to pull my spigot down and it keeps popping up like I don't have enough water pressure. That would be something that I would say. But other than that, I do not have any. May I ask how old your home is? I don't know if that's rude or not, but do you think that like the mayor said, that would be an issue, with maybe our pipes being different ages?
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why, if you don't mind me asking, or answering your question, or responding to your comment. Because over a year ago, when the Sigwassa guys came out, and they were awesome, by the way, when they came out and flushed, they said, Daryl, I think what the problem may be are the anodes in your water tank. And so what did we do? We replaced the water tank.
Yes.
And what do we have?
Same thing.
Stinky water.
Okay.
So that wasn't it. So that's my, whatever people have asked me to try to do, that's what I've done.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilkins?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on Commissioner Albright, because I also don't have smelly water. So I'm trying to figure out why we don't, thank God,
Yeah.
but Darren does. Because we're newer subdivisions?
Well, that's where the old pipes.
So I don't know, Commissioner Wade, Mayor Pro Tem, can you look into that?
I'm going to get to them and let them go last. Commissioner Gleason?
I appreciate your comments. I can say as a member of this board, other than even the board members that are on the Sigwassa board, I probably attended more Sigwassa meetings than both of them. I'm sure Amanda can attest to that. And I've brought Sigwassa to task many times. I appreciate your comments, and I have smelly water once in a while in Golden Pond. We have pretty new pipes when you compare it to the rest of the world. I think it is a problem that I don't know that this board can address, even that the CWASA board can address, is that we're limited by the amount of money that we have to spend, because only people that pay for water are ratepayers. And the cost of making our water better, and they have changed the water plant, upgraded the water plant, they have done things, the water tests well, doesn't test bad, but tell that to my wife when she's hollering from the bathroom that the water stinks. Money is a big issue. And when you're limited to the amount of money you can spend, because the only people that pay for it are the ratepayers, and the ratepayers are already mad about how much money that we spend. I know, for instance, and it was brought up at the last CWASA meeting, that Golden Pond has stinky water in a lot of areas because they have cul-de-sacs. And we've talked about automatic flush valves for years. It could solve the problem. But we don't have any automatic flush valves in those cul-de-sacs. Why? I'm sure because of the cost of it. So, beside the fact that we need improvements to the water system in general, I think the harder part is trying to figure out how we can create something that was created, 10 years ago, or whenever they created the CWASA thing, and gave an old goat to a veterinarian, and then sooner or later they kept giving the old goat, a lame goat now, to another veterinarian. And how do we change the system so that more state, federal money can get put into the system, whether it becomes a municipal water system made up of 4 municipalities, where taxpayer money can be involved? But I think right now, trying to save a nickel when you need to spend a dime is where we are. Everything takes 3 times as long as it should take to get anything done. Had bad anodes in a water tank. What do? They're gonna test, it's gonna take 3 months to get the test back, and then it will take other months. So the bottom line is, it's a bigger, the water stinks, we gotta make it better, the water quality should be better. But I really think the biggest issue is finances. And the way the whole system has been set up. You have a board of good people who really don't know anything about the water system, and they hire assuming good people, and generally have to take their word for it, generally like we do. I mean, we hire engineers and we follow their guidance. But again, I'll go back to the bottom line. Dollar signs. CWASA doesn't have the money to do what it needs to do in the time frame that really would help you and I and all the citizens of CWASA, or ratepayers. Thank you.
I did have one more thing, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Way.
Mr. Moss, the time that I've been on the CWASA board, I increasingly get more frustrated as a member of that board. What frustrates me the most is the inability to have the funds to make the necessary repairs. The background of information that we were basically handed a water and sewer system from the state of North Carolina that did not live up to the reputation that the citizens of Butner needed to have to begin with when it was handed over. And what's more frustrating is there's money out there that can come to repair that system, but you have to stand in line and fight with everyone else in the state to get some of those funds. Being new into the political realm, and emailing and talking on the phone with our state representatives to try to get funds is an interesting process. I did vote against the pay rate increase because I have a family of 5, and I showed Commissioner Kaczynski down what I just paid CWASA for my family of 5. the water that we have. I can only imagine what some of our citizens are having to do, having to pay that water bill. And also, I try to keep my ear to the ground with social media, with all the different realms that are out there. But my grandma always said, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say nothing at all. So I don't comment on a lot of things, but I do see some things. And, you know, some of it is hurtful because they put us all in a same pot, I guess you could say, instead of being individual. And I truly care for the people in this community. If I didn't, I wouldn't have joined the volunteer fire department when I moved here 20 years ago. To see some of the hurtful things that are said about Seguasa as a whole, knowing that I'm one vote, and if they don't want to listen to me, there's nothing I can do about it. If you're trying to get a collective people together to agree on one thing, sometimes it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. I wish there was something more that we can do, but I said at the last Seguasa meeting, if you go back and listen to the last meeting, I held my comments until we came out of closed session. And I truly believe the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If more of us collectively would reach out to our representatives, we might get some of that funds that are just sitting out there. One of the things that I did push for is we had the new pump station down at Lake Rogers to get the water here. But the problem is the equipment in the building was never utilized to get the chlorination or the filtration from the water coming from the water treatment plant. So by the time it leaves Butner and gets here, you can only imagine how much, you know, is lost in between with the chlorination process and the heat, due to the heat outside and the pipes and things of that nature. By the time the water gets to us, it's probably smelly and discolored and stuff for some of the people in the city. That was something that was started in 2022. Here it is 2024, and we're still waiting on a contractor that's been approved, waiting on parts to get things done, to get that equipment put in that building so we can get it done here. And that's what's frustrating. It takes so long to get anything done. And I don't know how you did it for so many years. It is, sometimes it just takes your breath away because you know in your heart you're trying to do the best you can for everybody. But you're only one person. But you just got to keep the flag going the best you can. And I do understand where you're coming from. However, I haven't had the smelly water, but I've seen people talk about it and things of that nature. But my neighborhood in Davenport, I don't have that issue for right now. But it's something that we definitely need to address. Whether we need to do it as a board or like I do it as an individual member of the Seguasa board, but I do hear your comments and I do see and hear what the citizens have to say. And I'm trying. Thank you.
And you remember in the old days, we had legislators and senators that were there for 20, 30 years. They could get things done, but now Ramble County pretty much overturned every year, every 4 years, every 2 years, whatever. We got a new person, they start off right at the bottom of the rung. So, you know, we don't have the clout that we used to have 30 and 40 years ago. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Moss, thank you so much for coming. I do understand your plight. I do remember the emails, and I do know that they did come to your house and talk to you about it. We talked about putting auto flushers on your street, and you were interested in auto flushers, correct?
They may have said that, but to be honest with you,
Well, an auto flusher at that time was $3,000. That's not a lot of money. I will bring it up again if we can do that. I do remember that when there was an email from the executive director, when they went to your house, the laundry room area was the area with the water problem, and it was because it only got used once a week, and they were saying that the water was laying in the line. And I think an auto flusher would help that. I personally do. So I'm going to try that again. But since I've joined the Sigwassa Board in the 5 years, we've done a $14 million upgrade to the water plant. The state continues to tell us the water's fine, and I'm gonna go back to Herman Wilkerson at one of his last meetings. Sorry about that. One of his last meetings, and he asked Scott, how was the water tested? And he said it was fine, and I remember Herman saying that's 36 months of no problems with the water. Well, now it's 5 years later, so it's been a long time, according to state standards. And I understand that, in my mind, according to state standards is not always according to the public, right? I don't have a problem with my water, never have. Don't know if it's the new pipes and the old pipe situation, but we've never had a problem. As Commissioner Way said, Sigwassa spent $150,000 to do a hydraulic model of the water lines from the plant all the way out to Wilton. And in that, we found 10,000 more gallons of allocation in the Joe P. pump station we didn't know we had. But the test results for the water showed that the water was fine all the way out to Wilton. The chlorination levels as it got out towards Mount Energy before Wilton had dropped, and they couldn't figure out why. And the reason is the Lake Rogers plant, the chlorine distribution system that was put in that building, like he said, it was never ever connected. I've been pushing at every single meeting or every single when he sends his progress report, I will ask what's going on with that pump station. And like Commissioner Way says, we're working on it, we're getting contracts, we don't have parts, it's as Commissioner Gleason said at our meeting the other night, everything is taking way too long. When we're talking about drinking water in people's homes, yes, it's taking too long. And once we get this chlorine distribution system up, I know you remember when you were mayor, there were people in CREEDMOOR who complained about the chlorine. They could smell the chlorine in the water and they complained about that. So we're gonna hit that. Once this equipment is put in and started to be worked, we're gonna have chlorine levels that are fluctuating for a while until we get it right. And it's gonna take a little bit of time. Why did the city of CREEDMOOR, were they not aware that there was problems with the water in Butner when the sale went through?
We absolutely were, Commissioner, we absolutely were. But as your mayor just pointed out, the city of CREEDMOOR was confronted with extreme political clout in Raleigh. And had we not done what we did and sold that system for $16.75 million, they were about to file a bill in the legislature to take it, which meant your community center wouldn't have been there. Many of the things that we've done, your sidewalks, a lot of those things would not exist today.
Okay, that was the one question. Now, the section of CREEDMOOR that you live in, I'm concerned about the pipes in the ground because they're older, probably older than a lot of pipes that are here. We do have the lead and copper study coming up where we have to check all the pipes in the ground, and if they're lead or copper, they have to come out. But the preliminary study has shown that most of the pipes in the ground in CREEDMOOR are not lead and copper. There's lead and copper going from the meter into the house, and there might be lead and copper in the homes, but this law from the federal government doesn't apply to that. I am going to bring up auto flushers for your neighborhood again. We hadn't heard any more, and I'm not quite like Commissioner White. I have disconnected from a lot of social media because of the negativity. It doesn't do anybody any good. If we could be a little bit more positive and hopeful, and I understand the water problem is, a lot of people have a lot of problems with it. I've had none. I had a Great Dane Great Danes usually live 7 to 10 years. He drank the water every day. He lived to be 13. My other one just turned 11. I'm not saying that that's got anything to do with this, but I drink that water every day. So since I've been a commissioner on the Siwassa Board, we've done a $14 million upgrade to the water plant, and we've done the hydraulic model to try to determine where in Creedmoor is the water got a problem. And Hazen and Sawyer that did that study, they came back and only told us about the chlorine distribution issue. They said that they didn't find anything. I could question it 25 times over, but then I would be accused of asking stupid questions over and over again, which I do anyway. But I will bring up the auto flusher in your neighborhood again. It's not that expensive. We want to put them in Golden Pond at the dead end piping in the cul-de-sacs. You're not on a cul-de-sac. Your road goes all the way through. But there are connections on that water line that were made after your house was built, and there's no newer houses than yours? That apartment building across the street from you is not newer than yours?
It's not on that line.
It's not on that line. Okay, all right. Well, I was thinking that maybe they changed the piping size, and that could be what it is. It's bottlenecking somewhere. But I will bring up auto flushers to try and help your situation. I've been told by the executive director that it may be frustration, that complaints have stopped. Complaints only alert us to situations that need to be addressed. And I really wish that people would just call Siwassa, let them come out. They came to your house, they pointed. I didn't know about the anodes in the hot water tank at that time. I was told it was because the water in the laundry room area was only being used once a week, so it was probably laying in the lines. From what I know about anodes in a hot water tank, it causes sporadic pulsing. I didn't know it doesn't cause any kind of smell or any of those other things. And since this issue has come up, I've done a little bit of study on it. But I will go back to Siwassa and see if I can get an auto flusher in your neighborhood, closer to your house. They will decide where it needs to go. But we will try. I'm willing to try. If it helps you, I'm willing to do it anyway. I'm not against helping anybody with these water issues, but, we are, everything costs money. The $14 million for the water plant, thank God we had the money in the bank. So we didn't have to get a loan for that. So that money is now being put back into the bank account, so we need it. I do know that the water tank from 1941 that is outside Siwassa is slated to be replaced. It's in our capital improvement plan. I'm wondering if that has something to do with the problem, because it's a cement tank from 1941. God only knows what's living in there now. But thank you for coming. Thank you for your plea. I appreciate it. And please know it did not fall on deaf ears with this commissioner or Commissioner Way or any of us up here.
Mr. Wilkins.
Something I think I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said the local officials were fortunate to find out about the meeting in Raleigh. Can you expand on that? I would think that everyone would have been notified.
I was wondering if anybody would catch that, but let me say, I'll answer your question, but you said earlier, I live at 206 Cozart Street. My mother lives at 207 Line Street, 30 seconds around the corner. Her water doesn't smell.
Wow.
So, I just give you that weird thing? I don't know. But, yeah, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to go, because I've been here, y'all got a long agenda. I've been here way too long. But yeah, they had that meeting in Raleigh with Secretary Jim Edgerton, and I had just been elected mayor of CREEDMOor.
Okay.
And my cousin's girlfriend called me and said, Darryl, there are a bunch of people down here from Granville County, county commissioner, a county manager, the attorney. Why aren't you here? She was joking. And I said, I don't know. And I said, well, if you find out, let me know. And she said, oh, I don't know. I'm Jim Edgerton's secretary. I'll be taking the meeting notes.
Okay.
And she, back in those days, that was pre-text. She faxed me the meeting notes. And Commissioner, I literally said, oh my God. they had gone down to Raleigh, I'm sure they rode right through Creedmoor and asked them for our allocation. Now, where I come from, which is Creedmoor, that's stealing. They could have, and I could point to example after example over the years when the county needed help from Creedmoor to do whatever. When Wilton needed water, they had water problems. Who did they come to get the line extended to Wilton? They came to Creedmoor. We said yes. When they built Tar River, they needed to do that again. Who did they come to? Creedmoor. They said yes. When they wanted to do countywide 911, they had the center in Butler and the center in Creedmoor. We were both autonomous, and they wanted to combine them. They asked, and we said yes. So we had a pretty good track record of cooperating. And I believe to this day, sir, that if they had had the courage to stop here at City Hall and say, hey, we need your help, there's no doubt in my mind the city of Creedmoor would have said yes. Very weird thing. But I've taken way too much of your time. I appreciate you listening. I will tell you, while I was standing here, I almost concluded that I had failed miserably tonight, because it was not about